Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a nice little two-game college basketball slate, and we also have a two-game NBA slate for you. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? It really does help the channel. I really do appreciate it. Make sure to check the links in the description below as well for YouTube members and stuff like that, and Discord. So let's look at the college basketball slate first. We do have Iowa versus Iowa State, and then we have Portland versus North Dakota State. Now, Iowa State is favored to win their game by 7 points and 156-point total. North Dakota State's favored to win their game by 2.5 points with 149-point total. And we have one injury at Iowa State, which is Ward. He is out. And he doesn't play a ton of minutes, so it's not a huge issue, but he did have some good fantasy games so far this season. Looking at our top plays, though, we have four guys that are core plays, and then I have one more guy as a top play, and then I have three secondary alternate options here. So we'll start with Lipsy for Iowa State. And Actually, we'll just start with Iowa State here, and we'll start with Lipsy. Now, Lipsy's played very well this season. He has a high ceiling. His floor is not bad, though he's had a couple off games. This game shouldn't be a super blowout. It should be similar to the DePaul game where they just score a ton of points. I expect that to be in play and have him in the mid 40s, if not higher. He looks like a really solid play, especially on a small site like this. He'll probably be the highest scoring player on the slate by quite a bit. The other player from Iowa State that I like a lot is Milan Makalinovic. Sorry if I butchered your name. He's playing a lot of minutes. His, total fantasy point production is a little bit inconsistent, as he does tend to be somewhat scoring dependent. But on a small slate like this, he's only had really one bad game under 20 fantasy points, and so I think he's got some good upside in this matchup. He is a secondary play, but he's definitely in play on this slate. Looking at Iowa, now they aren't favored to win this game, but I still like a couple of guys from this team, but they are secondary plays. One being Cricky. He's played very well this season. His price is a little bit higher than I'd like it to be. As you can see, he's only had a couple of games that he's really met the expectation for this price. But this should be a higher scoring game, and on a small slate like this, you want guys that you know are gonna score at least some fantasy points, and he's definitely one of them. So he definitely looks like a decent option. But he is contrarian. Same with McCaffrey. He is also contrarian. He's kind of in a similar boat. He's a little bit pricier than I'd like him to be, but he started the season very well. He's been a couple off games, but overall he should be able to get close to 20 fantasy points. And if he can do that, he should be able to pay off here. Again, he is a secondary play, but he's definitely a viable option on the slate. Then we're going to look at Portland. Now, they aren't favored to win their game, but they should be able to get a chunk of points up on this one. And my favorite play from this team is Tyler Robinson. He's played very well so far this season. He is pricey, but he has shown that he's capable of getting there in certain situations. And this is one where, as long as the game stays close, he should get at least to 30 fantasy points in this one, I think. Hopefully, he can get a little bit higher, but I do like his potential in this matchup. Also for Portland, we're going to look at Juan Sebastian uh, Gorosito. Now he's been somewhat inconsistent in the minutes so far this season, but he's been over 10 fantasy points in every game but one, and that was just one game where he only played 11 minutes against Portland State. But I think that was due to an injury situation. But I do think that he has some capacity here. He actually gets a decent chunk of assists even in his somewhat limited minutes. And if he can do that today, he should be able to be enough to make him worthwhile here. He does carry a little bit of risk, but he's definitely a capable option here. Then we're going to look at North Dakota State, and I like two players quite a bit from this game, from this team rather, and one of them being Wheeler Thomas. He's played pretty solid, and he's got a good floor here for the price. He hasn't had a monster game where he's really paid off at 5x or anything like that. But even college basketball, that tends to be somewhat hard. He looks like a solid play on the slate and a good matchup in a game that should be tight, and he should get plenty of minutes. And he does tend to get enough peripheral stats to pay off. The foul trouble has hurt him a little bit in a couple games, but overall he does get enough that makes him worthwhile, and he has good scoring potential here as well. Looking at Morgan, he's also in play for them. He's not been over 20 fantasy points a ton so far this season, but he is capable of it. In the last few games, he's played a little bit better. His minutes have been inconsistent, but I think in this particular game, he'll probably get a few more minutes, and he looks like a solid option on this team, even though he does carry a little bit of risk with his price being a little bit higher than it should be. But overall, on a small slate like this, it's really hard to find a lot of guys that really look great, and so I think he's a viable option. Um, that's pretty much what I have for college basketball. So let's go ahead and move over to the NBA here. And for the NBA slate, we have a couple injuries for each team. For the Pacers, Jalen Smith remains out. For the Bucks, Crowder and Connaughton remain out. For the Pelicans, Ryan and Nance remain out. And for the Lakers, Vincent remains out. LeBron is questionable. So I do have some interesting plays here. I'm going to start with Anthony Davis. Now, he is questionable today, but he's been playing absolutely monster basketball uh, through the NBA tournament NBA in season tournament, and he should be motivated to play pretty hard in this one. Obviously, he always comes with some injury risk, but he's been doubling just about every game for a while, and I like his potential here to do that again, and that will help him pay off here. He's also under $10,000, which is definitely a benefit. Now, he does face a tougher matchup in the paint with Zion and everybody there, but I do think he's going to be able to do it regardless, so I think he's a good option on the slate, especially if he's highly motivated. I also like Tyrese Halliburton today. Now, he's played very well through this tournament as well, and he's had some monster games as well. I really like his upside here. They're going to run fast. Milwaukee will probably run faster today, too, and so he should have plenty of opportunity to get all the things he wants. I do think Milwaukee is one of the better defensive teams on the slate outside of the Pelicans, but Halliburton has shown that Milwaukee has shown that they're not as good as they were last year, and Halliburton has shown us to be somewhat inconsequential when it comes to the defense. He will just dominate every team, so I like his potential in this game. I'm also going to look at Miles Turner. Now, he does face a tougher matchup defensively in the paint, but he's been playing very well in the tournament as well, and I like his upside in this matchup, especially with this price point. We're also going to look at Chris Middleton for Milwaukee. Now, he's been on minutes limit for most of the season, but in the last few tournament games, he's been playing a few extra minutes, getting closer to the 30 fantasy point range that we need him to get to pay off, and he's playing very well in those. So I like his potential here. I'm not thinking he'll do much more than 5x, but if he can 5x on a small site like this at his price point, that definitely helps us roster other players. Looking at Damian Lillard here, he's also played very well in these tournament games, and he's got nice upside at this price point. He's been over 45 fantasy points in a bunch of games in a row now. Seems like he's really got used to his role with this team, and he's scoring a lot of points right now. Giannis is kind of harder to roster as a result of the situation there. Then we'll look at Brandon Ingram. He's also played very well in the tournament. I like his potential here as well. And he's a little bit underpriced here, which is somewhat surprising for his role. Even with everybody healthy for the most part, he definitely gets a lot of upside in this matchup. Mithurian is one of my value plays that I do like today, though he has been inconsistent throughout the season. He's played well in the tournament games, and I think he draws some good potential here, especially with Jalen Smith out. Even though he plays somewhat of a different position, he seems to eat some of those minutes. Then we'll look at Trey Murphy for the Pelicans. Now, he's only been back for 2 games, but in those 2 games, he's been over 20 fantasy points in both, and he's playing a good handle of minutes. This is a good matchup for him against the Lakers, who really don't play a ton of defense. He should be able to get some opportunity here to have a decent game, and so he's definitely a viable option. Kind of a Hail Mary play would be Jared Vanderbilt if he plays today, which he played the last game, and he's played the last 2 games rather, and if he can get over 15 fantasy points, then that would be enough here on a small little slate like this, and he can help you pay up for other positions, but he definitely carries the Hail Mary position. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.